Now, before we get into actually gathering our own samples, there's a few more things that I want to cover. We can see underneath the pitch/speed button, it says envelope. And if I hold shift and I press this, I have an attack, hold, and release envelope that I can use to shape the volume contour of my samples. And this can be great depending on what it is you want to do. Right now, I have the same longer sample we were listening to earlier. And it's actually going in reverse. That's how it should sound. It has these gaps in there. It sounds like there's some like sidechain compression, some nice rhythmic volume stuff happening. What if I want this to fade in a bit, or maybe I want it to fade out a bit? C1 here is going to adjust the attack of my envelope. All right. If I adjust the release, okay, I don't have to adjust the whole time, but it'll just basically create a fade out at the end. Nice and graceful. What I really appreciate about the envelopes here is that this happens before the loop is engaged. So for example, let's turn loop on and let's trigger the loop. Oh, you know what? Gate is on. Let's turn gate off. There we go. That's really, really, really cool. To me, that's kind of a slept on feature. And you notice if gate is enabled, what happens now is when I press the pad, it's going to respect the envelope, which means when I let go, the release time means it's not going to just cut off abruptly. See, gate is enabled. Let's go ahead and adjust the attack. If I adjust the release to be 0. All right. So, super nice that that's there. You also have mute groups. So if we want to, we can assign multiple samples to the same mute group so that when one sample plays, it cuts off the other sample in the same mute group. Good example of that usage, closed and open hi-hats, right? If I want to use a mute group, I can see under pad 8, it says mute groups. I hold shift and press pad 8, and I already have assigned my closed and open hi-hat to a mute group, but let's disable that. In the screen, it says mute group. There are 10 mute groups. They correspond to the 10 different banks. If you want to go to a different mute group, you can just use the value knob to switch. The mute groups are not tied to the banks, so you can have sounds in bank C that are assigned to mute group A if you want, all right? But each mute group can only have up to 16 sounds assigned to it. Keep that in mind. So I want to assign these 2 sounds in bank A to mute group A. It's as easy as that. And then I get out. Now, this open hi-hat, gate mode is off. And let's just turn gate off for my closed hi-hat. All right, so they cut each other off nicely, and that's great. One last little housekeeping thing. There are certain parameters that we can change per bank, which might be really useful depending on how we're organizing our samples. A quick example, if I go back to the pitch speed menu here, I talked a little bit before in the previous video about changing the speed and the pitch of samples and also the different time stretching modes that are available, which is a nice little important thing to remember as I'm demonstrating this. Let me find a sample. Let's see. Okay, this is in the vinyl mode. If I hold remain, you see now it says to bank. And if I change the pitch, this is going to change the pitch of all the other samples in the bank that are in the same time stretch mode, that are in vinyl mode. All right, so now I've let go. I changed the pitch here to +6. Okay, you see the snares in vinyl mode? That's in vinyl mode. So everything in vinyl mode changed. What about things that are being time stretched? All right, let's hold remain. And I want everything that is not in vinyl mode to be changed to a different pitch. So it's a little quirky. It's one of those things that you got to be aware of, okay? But you can use this to change the values per bank. When it comes to pitch, it's going to do it based on the time stretch mode that's used. But when it comes to volume, thankfully, it works. how you would expect. Quite nice. One more parameter that we can adjust per bank is the tempo. And you might want to adjust this so then you can just sync everything to the tempo. If I hold shift and I press pad 11, I can see now we can choose either a tempo for the bank, or if I use my C1 knob, I can use an overall project tempo, and then I can have all of my samples sync to this tempo if I just press BPM sync. All right. Like I said, when it comes to working with tempo in the 404, there are many things to think about, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Right now, let's focus on gathering some samples and then having some fun with those.